What? How illogical. Hello world, and welcome to lesson 6 of our logic and reasoning course. Today we are going to work on something a little different. I was thinking, what can we do that's like logic and reasoning, kind of similar to that, that's kid friendly? And I was thinking flowcharts. You guys haven't done flowcharts yet. And that's like a cool kind of logic thing that I think it's like nice and visual, and even as a kid, you can, I think, understand it. So we're going to jump right into that. So a flowchart is kind of like a picture that you use that's sort of like giving instructions or showing logical steps. And oftentimes that's, when you're at a job or something like that, you're trying to explain to somebody how to do something. Let's say you want to give somebody instructions for like building a house or something like that. Those instructions are logical steps, right? Now, it's not logic in the sense of when we think about like arguments and stuff like that, but it's that same kind of flow of like step by step, and you don't want to get things out of order, and you have to be very precise and all of that. So that's kind of a good example of like a real world application of this idea of sort of reasoning. Less formal logic and more reasoning, really. So a flowchart is often more used in like programming and other things like that. I think you don't use it for like building instructions, but it's just sort of another way to sort of show instructions or demonstrate your steps for a process. And because we're homeschoolers and we get to do this in pick whatever topic we want. So I figured we would do this with Minecraft because, yeah, it's like everybody's favorite game, right? So something a little fun that we can use to show how to make a flowchart and how flowcharts work, okay? So first off, let me just kind of introduce you to the parts of a flowchart. So what you're going to do when you're making a flowchart is you're going to put everything in these like little boxes. And you'll notice that some of these boxes have different shapes. And the different shapes have a meaning to them. The start of a flowchart and kind of at the end, you usually use this, it's like a sort of like a circle, oval, or you could also think of it as like a rectangle, but instead of like sharp corners, it's got like rounded corners, right? So that's the shape that you use for your start and your end of your flowchart. So the other one you'll see is this rectangle. And the rectangle, it's sort of like an action box. It's like, do this. Okay, so you'll see it's kind of like a verb or like an action that you're supposed to take when you get to that box, okay? All right, so the other one that you'll see when you're making flowcharts is a diamond, like this. And when you see a diamond, it's like a decision. So in a flowchart, when you get to a diamond, you're going to have like two different paths that you can go. And usually the diamond, it's going to ask you a question. And depending on your answer to that question, you're going to go different directions in your flowchart, okay? So here's one that I just kind of put together, just thinking about like, how do you start a new world in Minecraft? And you can see at the top, we have our start area. So you do that sort of rectangle with rounded corners and just write start there so people know where to start on the chart. So then we want to draw an arrow to the next box that we want people to go to, okay? So after we start our new game in Minecraft, the first question that we want to ask ourselves is, do you see a tree? Right? Because what do we need when you make a new game in Minecraft? What do you need?
Wood.
Wood. You need wood, right? It's like your first thing to start making stuff.
So So that you can like make planks, to make crafting table and tools, and
Uh-huh.
building materials.
Yeah, so you guys are Minecraft pros. So we make a diamond box at the start, and we say, do you see a tree? Okay. And so based on your answer to that, because, you know, when you start a new game of Minecraft, maybe you spawn in a desert biome or something like that, right? And if you do, you're not going to really have any trees around you. So you need to move to a new biome to start finding some trees, right? So we want to ask, do you see a tree? And then remember we said the diamond, that's kind of your asking question, and it sort of has two exits. So if yes, then you kind of go in this one direction. If no, then you go in this other direction. So we could say, if no, if you don't see any trees, then explore until you find trees, right? Move to a new biome, move to a forest biome. And then if yes, then you can go to this next step over here, and that says punch down a tree to get some wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you notice that our other path kind of connects into this one too. And so you can kind of see like sometimes, because if we go for the no path, like if we didn't see wood nearby, and we say, okay, we explore until we find tree, and then our next step, well, it's going to be the same next step as if we started by trees, right? So we can kind of connect them back up instead of having two different paths that we keep the whole way, right? Because that can get really complicated. So usually when you have like a yes or a no path, usually it's eventually good to kind of connect them back up just to keep your flowchart from getting bigger than it really has to be. And again, if you notice the shape of these boxes, remember we just kind of have a normal rectangle because this is something that's telling us to do something, right? When you get to a rectangle box, it tells you what to do, you do that thing, and then you go on to the next box and you follow the arrows. Okay? So, whether we started near trees or not, we've either found some or just gone to where the trees are, and now we've got punched some trees down and we've got some wood. All right, what's the next thing that we need to do in Minecraft? Stone. But before we get to stone, what do we need to do?
We need to make tools.
We need to make tools. What do you need to make tools?
A crafting table.
Crafting table. Right. So now we've got our wood. So now our next box would be make a crafting table. Okay?
And use 4 planks for that.
Yeah.
So you only need 1 log.
Yeah. If you wanted to make this really detailed, you could go into like turn your wood logs into wood planks and all that stuff. We're not going to get into that level of detail though, okay? We're going to keep this a little simpler, yeah. So make a crafting table. And then once we have a crafting table, now we can make our wood tools, right? Like the axe and pickaxe and all that stuff. So now that we have wood tools, now what's the next thing what we need? Stone, right? So now we want to work towards getting stone, and so we can get stone tools. So our next question then, so now we have to kind of ask this question, do we have stone near us? But we also have to think about what?
You can just dig down. Yeah.
You could just dig down.
But that's like deep.
You could, yeah.
Don't dig straight down.
Well, here's another thing, especially if you're playing on survival mode, which is the most fun way to play Minecraft, let's be real. If you're playing on survival mode, what else do you have to worry about?
Mobs,
zombies, night coming, skeletons. Yeah, you don't want to be stuck out. Creepers. You don't want to be stuck out in the middle of the thing in the middle of the night, right?
Yes.
So we should probably think about that too. Okay? So now we could go, and you can debate on whether maybe now you start working towards stone tools or whether you start thinking about shelter. But let's say we're trying to be really safe. Okay? So now we're starting to think about we got some basic wood tools at least. We can easily gather blocks and such. Now if we want to be really safe, we gotta start thinking about, do we want to live in like a house or a cave? What kind of shelter do we want to have? So now we got to another diamond box here. Do you want to live in a house or a cave? Right? So you can go different paths. If you want to live in a cave, well then you got to find a cave, right? If you want a house, then you just come up here and say, well, use your wood to make the house that you want, and so on and so forth. And then once you're done with that, now we're still going to have to find our stone and coal and iron and all that. So we're still going to come back around to this idea of let's find a cave, right? Or make a cave, dig down, whatever. Again, I'm trying to keep this relatively simple. Yeah. We don't want to have a ton of different steps. But do you guys kind of see how when you get to these triangles, based on that question, you can kind of go one way or the other, right? And how you can sort of connect them back to keep following the same steps. Now, again, this is something you guys don't probably necessarily think about when you sit down and play Minecraft. You don't think about it in terms of like instructions and steps, and you just kind of play the game. Yeah.
How you want to.
Yeah. But what I'm trying to show you here is that this idea of like logic and reasoning and all these things, it's around you more than you think, and you use it more than you think you do, right? Because you probably have never gone through and organized your thoughts like this, but I'm showing you like this is kind of the thought process that you use when you're playing Minecraft. And you could do this for any game too, right? So it's just kind of a fun exercise to show how you can take your thoughts and organize them. And that's sort of like the essence of, again, what we're doing in a class like logic and reasoning, is trying to show how we can order and organize our thoughts, right? So we're trying to get stone tools now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we found our cave. Now we can mine our stone. We've got our crafting table already, so we can start making some stone tools, right? Once you've got stone tools, you can mine what?
Iron
and copper and coal and all those other stuff, right? Once you got stone, you can start mining iron, and that's kind of the next big like upgrade for your tools and your gear and stuff, right? So you mine our iron, okay, and then our next step, I'm going to put a little diamond here, because we kind of have to ask the question, as you were getting your iron, did you find coal? Because usually you do, right? But sometimes it happens where you just don't find any coal. And you find several iron veins, but you just don't find any coal. And what do we have to do if we're making our iron?
You have to smelt it.
Yeah, you gotta smelt it in a furnace, right?
Yeah, but you can just use your old wood tools.
You could use your old
wood. But it's better to use coal.
It's better. Coal is a lot better fuel source. It lasts longer. And you could burn all your wood stuff if you have to, but...
Or you could use charcoal.
Or you could use charcoal, yeah. So if you don't have coal, making charcoal in terms of like having good fuel sources, charcoal is kind of the next best thing if you don't have coal. So that's kind of what I was thinking for this diamond, is say, did you find coal? If yes, then you can just use your coal to smelt your iron, and then from there you can start making your iron tools, your iron swords, you can make armor, you can make all kinds of stuff with iron, right? But if no, then we can come over here and we can have a box to say, use your furnace to make the charcoal, right? Now, once they do that, then we can connect because we're doing the same thing at the end of both paths. Does that kind of make sense? All right. So this is just kind of a simple, and we'll for now we'll kind of stop there because again, you can make this really big if you want, and make it as detailed as you want. Now, if you could imagine, like if you were doing this for like you're writing a computer program or you're like making instructions for your job or something, then you probably want to have it a lot more detailed. And I think next time, maybe next episode, I'm thinking about doing the peanut butter instruction thing. You know about it.
What?
You'll see.
Peanut butter again. Tell me after this is done.
Sure. So if you're gonna go do this for a job or something like that, obviously you'd want to make this a lot more detailed. And you got to think about your audience, like if you're making a flowchart or you're writing instructions for something, you got to always think about like who's going to be reading it, are they going to understand what you're saying and stuff like that. And so that sort of determines how much detail you need to go into, right? So our flowchart that we made today, this would be just fine for someone who's played Minecraft a few times before, right? Mm-hmm. But let's say it was someone who never played Minecraft before at all, then you might have to have more steps in here. And when we say like things like punch down a tree to get wood, maybe you have to go into more detail and explain, well, you have to left click. Go up to a tree and hold left click to punch it down. And something like that. And when we say make a crafting table, somebody's played Minecraft before, they understand it. But if not, you would want to elaborate on those instructions, right? What would you say to somebody who hasn't played Minecraft before?
You hit E and then there's like 4 squares and you put one wood plank in each one, and it's like
you turn the logs into planks.
Yes. Yeah. So you'd have to explain how to turn logs into planks, and then how to put the planks into the 4 squares, and that makes your crafting table. You click on it to get So you see how if you got to think about who you're writing your instructions for.
And if you shift click, you can make tons of things. Like if you put a bunch in it, you shift click. I've done this before where I'm making a pickaxe and I accidentally had my finger on shift and I made like 10 pickaxes.
Sounds excessive. Yes.
That was funny.
Okay. Anyway, this is just to illustrate. We're not making a Minecraft tutorial right now. We're just kind of trying to use Minecraft to show some principles of like reasoning and flowcharts and things like that. Okay, but do you understand what I was getting at? How you got to think about, if you're making a flowchart, you got to think about who's going to be reading it and who's going to be following it, and that will tell you kind of how much detail you need to go into, right? And again, the example of that is for like something like this, talking about Minecraft. A new player would need more details than somebody who's played for a few times. Kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I think so.
So that's just kind of a basic thing showing how flowcharts work. I think it would be a good exercise, and if you're following along at home, this would be a good thing to do on your own. Make your own flowchart. Pick Minecraft or whatever game that you enjoy, or an activity that you would enjoy, a hobby, and make a flowchart, a basic flowchart for how to do that, and show that to your mom and dad. That'd be a great little exercise to do. That's going to be it for us for this episode. Remember to drop us a like if this is at all helpful. Don't mine your diamonds with a wood pickaxe. And yeah, what else?
Don't mind
Mind the subscribe button.
Mind the subscribe button.
And the like button.
And the like button.